a mixed-race relationship has enhanced my life.
Well, we met at a concert.
We worked together.
Yeah.
We had an apartment warming party, and she came,
With my roommates.
and that's how we met.
So I introduced myself because I was newly single and I thought she was very beautiful.
I was like, I just want to meet somebody nice.
She thought I couldn't tell time.
Yeah, and she thought I was a bougie white girl.
I really wanted to be friends.
Really bad.
Yeah, I didn't want to be involved with anyone.
I did not want to be friends.
People are often confused when they meet Jake and he's white, I guess, because they're like, oh, you didn't tell me my husband was, and I was like, yeah, well,
Right.
you find out eventually.
Yeah, and I was in the, she didn't think I knew how to swim.
You also think white people sleep with their animals, so I mean, like, there are definite rumors from both sides that we had to squash up front.
Sometimes she plays Irish music.
Oh, yeah, that really upsets him. It's Celtic music.
Yeah, sorry.
I already had a girlfriend when we met. A white girlfriend, so she knew that was like, it wasn't an issue.
I'd never dated anyone of a different race before, so it was different.
I don't think it would be any different if I dated a white girl as opposed to a black girl. My family would be more accepting, I guess, of a white person.
Jake's like, my parents are in town. We're across the street at this restaurant that we always went to. You should come down. And then, so my first thought was like, did you tell your parents that I'm black? Because that could kind of be a thing.
Are your parents like mad that you're dating him? And I was like, no, because he's amazing. Like all my other boyfriends were crappy. Like they were so happy. And they're like, yeah, but they don't mind. Like, you sure they're not? I was like, what do you mean mind? And they're like, because he's black.
I think the only time it really comes up in conversation is around the parents, for some reason. It's the next generation when you're about to introduce your new friend, and they're from a different race.
I mean, some girls feel like, I should be dating a black woman.
I didn't think it was such a big issue when I first dated someone out of my race, but it turned out that it was.
My mom, like, she had a big issue. She was like, you're going to take that money and spend it on these white girls and these white women and stuff. And I don't know. I just get a lot of heat about it sometimes.
He was like, nah, man, you gotta stay away from them. Like, you don't. He was like, they're all the same. And he began to describe these white women in a way that they're all in some same box and same context. And I was amazed because he'd never dated a white woman. He didn't know anything about it, but he was sitting here breaking down to me exactly how they were and what they would do and how my future would be with a white woman.
I grew up with racist grandparents. I chose not to. I chose to walk around. That Freedom commercial that was like, I don't know, it's probably like 15 years old now, but it was the Freedom song, Freedom, Freedom, and it just showed all of these different African American images. My grandfather would yell and scream at the TV when it came up, and I would walk around going, Freedom! And he would just get so mad. But I've always been that way since I was a child.
Just being an interracial couple walking down the street sometimes can be a challenge. And I wouldn't say it's probably the same challenge that same-sex couples get, because I think that sometimes they might incur more violence for some reasons, but it is kind of similar.
He didn't even get to see it happen. A black girl, nonetheless, he's rolling over.
Or sometimes you don't necessarily feel safe, or you'll get looks.
But don't fucking look at me. Like, don't mind your business. That's what I feel. This has nothing to do with you.
I know that we probably get looks sometimes, and depending where we are, a lot less.
If we go somewhere, people might be thinking things or saying things.
We don't go a lot of places where people will look at us funny.
No, like, we're not going to the New Orleans Country Club or like somewhere where it's going to be filled with older people.
I don't like traveling in the United States anyway in the country. I don't feel safe anyway, so we don't.
I wasn't used to being like the only white person in the room.
Yeah, I'm pretty used to being the only black person in the room.
We dealt with a few situations before.
There are external challenges and then there are internal challenges.
I feel like sometimes Sara doesn't understand because she's not black, so. But she tries her best to understand.
And even despite wanting to be open and thinking that I'm completely open-minded or free from some of those ways of thought, that sometimes those ways of thought sneak up and it's like, hey, that's not me.
When someone is struggling with something that is racial within our relationship, and finding the way to relate to it without being like, yeah, I know exactly how you feel, but just being there for that person and trying to relate to the problem.
That's also something I haven't had to experience a lot in my lifetime, and that's where I think I have like this white shroud of me on me, because I don't necessarily, I'm naive to things like that.
But at first, when I heard that term, white privilege, it didn't make sense to me. But it's very clear now to me. But just by being in a mixed race relationship, that I think that even deepens my understanding for the world we live in.
That's why once a week we have 30 minutes set aside where we teach each other about things from our cultures. I encourage all couples to do that. Or you can
I take him to Starbucks a lot, so.
I've been at Starbucks more than I've ever been in my life.
I'm a pretty straightforward person. Like, I talk about race all the time.
Jake and I talk about race all the time, and it's something that's normal for us, and so I realize that it's something that's, and for my family too, I guess. I think that black people talk about race more than white people in general because it's more salient for us.
I explained to her, and sometimes I have to put myself in a situation for her to understand. Because, like, what if this was me?
White people are really uncomfortable about talking about race, and so I've realized that by stepping into it with his family.
I don't notice people treating her differently as opposed to what would usually happen with me. It's not something that I think about. But the first time it happened, I now notice it more. I notice it, and it does. It's extremely unfair. And it is unfortunate, but it does happen every time.
And this cop pulls us over, takes Daniel out of the car, puts him up against the car, and was patting him down, asking him all these questions.
Brought another cop.
He comes around to me and is asking me, like, are you okay? Like, do you feel safe? Like, is there anything in the car? And I'm like, this is my
already explained
boyfriend.
to him the situation.
We're going to a wedding. Look, like, nothing is shady about this at all. Like, we don't have anything in the car. We were speeding because we're late. If we're driving a minivan, like... Mm-hmm. And just watching the way they treated Daniel, like, made me so upset.
There was a couple of days right after the Charleston shooting where the black people were shot in the A&E church, the historical church down there by Dylan's Roof. And we were at his hometown, this rural white hometown.
Acting like he was the one who was scary and like I should be afraid of him, but really it was them who were scaring me.
I went in the middle of the night to just grab something from the car, and I had this thought. I was like, what if someone thinks that I'm trying to like rob their car and shoots me, right? And so I posted that on Facebook. I was like, in my husband's rural hometown, sneaking out to get something out of the car at 3 a.m., I'm actually afraid that I might get shot.
I was like, Sarah, let's go, and you take something back, and I'm gonna take something back, and watch how they treat me, and watch how they treat you. And it was something small at Walmart, and I took mine back, and the guy and Sara went behind me, and
The man said to me, that girl stole all that stuff. And I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry, what? He said, that girl, she just returned that, and she stole it. I said, well, how do you even know that? Oh, I know.
So what happened was some of my family members took it personally.
I said, she seems pretty small and she's not carrying a bag. How do you think she even took that out of the place? I'm just, oh, I know.
A big white guy with his black friends grabs on him. He's like, you need to be with a white guy. You need to have some white guy in your life. Some
no,
white.
I really don't.
Some whiteness up in ya.
No.
And his friend's just like, yeah, man. And I'm like, okay. And so it was just weird.
I start to get all of these frantic texts and strange messages from my brother, who to this day we haven't spoken, and this is over 2 years ago now, attacking me about why I'm not keeping her in check with what she's saying on Facebook.
I said, well, I hope you don't think I stole anything, because I'm about to return this item without a receipt as well. Oh, no, not you.
I was like,
And I was like, what the?
It created a rift. And to this day, it still hurts because it's interesting because it ties back to when the first time I was in a mixed race relationship, I was getting a lot of the same heat from that same person, my brother.
It jarred me back to the reality of,
Yeah.
a lot of people still have a problem with this.
You know, you have something to say, let's talk. And we actually did. And it was really good. And a lot of stuff that came up that had nothing to even do with me.
There's a lot more hate running around than there was probably like 365 days ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I know why. People are coming out the woodworks with their passions and their hate towards other people. And it's just becoming more and more apparent that if you're any type of brown, you're in a little more danger than anyone else.
they're always watching me. I don't carry a purse or anything, and I'm like, I can buy whatever I want in this store. But yeah, they like to watch me and stuff, and Sara noticed it and stuff like that, and that makes her upset sometimes.
In a mixed race relationship too, I think that like you can't sleep. You've got to be on your toes, and you've got to keep your wit about you.
But nobody watched Sara at all.
We live in a very imperfect country, very imperfect world, but then when the more that you begin to share with one another, then you strengthen your community, you strengthen your family, and you start to see what's happening in the world and relate, and you all start to relate.
She does a great job of explaining every situation that I may not understand.
It's always a little bit of a shock when you go to each other's little family events. The things that happen and go on, it's just, it's black and white.
I get this where it's like they're looking at her and they're looking at me and they're going, and then they kind of figure it out because I'm watching her, and then we do look alike, and then it's so like, oh, then they figure it out, or they'll say, oh, that's your daughter?
I think society may see it differently, and that may make me more crazy, truthfully.
Just like being really open and honest with them and like preparing them.
I don't think the biracial issue will be a problem at all. I think it's going to be the lesbian parents.
Giving her some, biracial heroes of her own, like Barack Obama and Frederick Douglass and, Lena Horne.
But I mean biracial coming from lesbian parents. I really think the whole shebang is going to throw people for a loop.
Like having these conversations with her so it doesn't just go over her head and it's not something that she probably notices but doesn't notice. Like, no, let's bring that out into the open. Let's explore that.
Like if we live somewhere where like it's predominantly white or predominantly black or how open-minded they are, like I just don't want.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I don't want.
Because no matter what, a brown kid is a black kid. And so you got to think about how people are going to treat the black kid.
And I want to give her that kind of protection because she looks like a black girl. And so growing up, her experience and how people react to her is going to be as a black person.
Just worried about it, his safety and the world that we're growing up in.
I think the world is unfair, and I wish I could change it all, but I can't.
I think you change it a little bit just by being who you are.
Hopefully so.
Yeah, there's lots of positives. I mean, every day is a positive around here.
The positives and even the negatives most likely aren't related to race. They're just related to who she is. So all the positives are Elle.
But this is like, I feel like the strongest relationship bond that I've ever had.
We get lots of smiles. Yeah, I mean, we get lots of smiles.
I love who she is, and I love what she wants, and I love the things that she loves, and I love her passions, and that's what's positive. It ain't got nothing to do with if she's white or not. The positive is she's a great person.
People have gone through so much throughout history for us to be able to live this enhanced life, and for that I'm thankful.
Love is love is love is love is love. So if you love it, go for it. If you love it, then you probably need it. If you need it, keep it and fight for it. And that's it. Love is love.